Hello world, it's Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026, and here's what happened this week in PHP internals. 20 stories this week, so let's get into it. But first, this week's episode is brought to you by Tideways. Slow requests and no clear reason why, Tideways helps you understand exactly where your PHP application spends its time. Profiling, tracing, and monitoring to find and fix bottlenecks faster. And your profiling data stays hosted in Germany. GDPR friendly by default. Learn more at tideways.com. This week's top story, the season's first ballots are open, 2 sets of them, and early counts are lopsided. Tim Dusterhoos opened voting on the time duration class on Friday with 2 ballots, a primary needing a 2/3 majority, and a secondary choosing between full and abbreviated method names. As of recording, the primary stands at 23-1, and the full names leads 18-1, so multiplyBy and divideBy, not mul and divby. Voting closes July 31st. And remember Pierre Joy, who last week was leaning no over from seconds and its capped nanoseconds argument? This week, he closed the loop and voted yes, writing, "We were like ships passing in the night for some of my disagreements. The RFC wiki page did not show the additional constructor for other units, which hence the inconsistency I pointed out for the extra nanoseconds argument in from second. They are here and reduce this down to a lower level of bad APIs, more a pragmatic compromise conciliating different, if not numerous, use cases. Anything can be perfect or shipped. Choose one." It turns out the per-unit constructors that resolved his objection had been in the RFC all along. His ballot almost didn't register, though. Each vote on the wiki is a separate form, and Tim had to point out that you submit each one individually. The count now includes him. Before the ballots open, the duration thread picked up a subplot about PHP 9. Holly Schilling, who wrote the class extensions RFC we covered last week, announced she's drafting a value structs proposal for after the 8.6 window, and argued that duration would make a better struct than a class, with both ideally landing together in PHP 9. Ilya Tovilo replied by linking his own existing structs v2 draft and asking whether she was aware of it. She was. She'd read it before drafting her own and diverged from it on purpose, keeping mutating and non-mutating functionalities separate. Tim saw no reason to wait for any of this, saying a draft stage idea will take an unknown duration to land if it ever happens. And that's his pun, not mine. And that improvements to the standard library shouldn't queue behind it. The week's other live vote came from Eric Norris, who opened balloting Tuesday on minimum supported versions for PHP 8.6, also with 2 questions, each needing a 2/3 vote. Requiring autoconf 2.71 for builds from Git stands at 20-3 with 4 abstentions. Requiring com reset connection, which sets a floor of MySQL 573 or MariaDB 1024, so persistent connections actually get reset, stands at 21-0 with 3 abstentions. Alexander Carrillo arrived after the discussion phase to ask for an opt-in instead, writing that in older databases, persistent connections will silently turn into non-persistent. Eric noted, MySQL 573 is at least a decade old. It was released in December 3rd, 2013. After walking through every opt-out design he could think of, he concluded the right move is to make the correct behavior the default. The 3 no votes on autoconf include Jakub Zelenka, who's worried about building on Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 and 9. Tim offered to delay that particular merge until 8.7. Both votes closed July 30th. Saturday night, Pierre Joy opened the RFC that grew out of the libgd sync we covered last week, GD 2.4. It's big. 3 pillars. First, syncing the bundle GD extension with upstream libgd, new codecs like QOI, JPEG XL, and Ultra HDR, animated GIF and WebP support, multi-page TIFF, and real metadata handling. Second, an additive object-oriented GD API, codecs with from file and to stream, immutable image info, streaming readers and writers. And third, a brand new 2D vector canvas built on FreeType's rasterizer with gradients and the full Cairo compositing set. He said the implementation is nearly done, including a security audit. He declared discussion open for 14 days until August 1st, and that one sentence is where the trouble started. Because August 1st plus a 14-day vote lands after the deadline. Release manager Matteo Beccari was gentle about it, writing, "As much as I like this RFC, I'm afraid it came in a little too late." Jakub Zelenka explained that nobody, release managers included, has the authority to grant an exception. That would have to take a change from the policy itself. And Rowan Tommins did the arithmetic. With Alpha 1 out July 2nd, the cutoff for an RFC's final state was July 14th, which is 4 days before his thread even opened. Pierre's frustration has a specific shape. The implementation was finished weeks ago. What delayed everything was that his pull request sat waiting on an approval that had been assigned to an automated bot reviewer, so no human was ever going to sign off, and he eventually merged it himself. He also argues the stakes are real because PHP 9 is the only chance to change old defaults, and missing this window locks the current design in for years. The thread got tense over tone along the way. Pierre felt brushed off by a terse reply, and Rowan apologized pretty quick. Then made the counter case that a fixed cutoff applied to everyone is fairer than debating each RFC's merits one at a time. All of this landed the same day Larry Garfield asked the list, in a separate thread, to hold new business until September 1st, so reviewers can focus on 8.6's finish line. So GD 2.4 is alive and under discussion, just aimed at the next release, whatever number it turns out to be. Caleb White's pipe assignment operator, pipe equals, had a crowded week. Larry Garfield opened it, unable to find a compelling use case, and by Monday had moved to a no. Pushed there, he says, by a competing proposal. That competing proposal is Vadim Dvorovenko's left-to-right assignment RFC, published Sunday, which claims the same pipe equals token with opposite semantics. Vadim objects on principle, arguing, attempting to transform such an operator from an immutable function construct into a mutable imperative one steers the language in the wrong direction and undoes previous efforts. Caleb declined to merge the proposals, noting that F#, Elixir, OCaml, and Hack all kept ordinary assignments along their pipes. Larry also claimed none of the pipe proposals could make 8.6, and Tim Dusterhuis corrected him, asserting this is false. The last major change was July 13th, so voting could open July 27th and close August 10th before the freeze. Meanwhile, Bob Vinehand asked whether the desugaring double fires property hooks. Caleb came back with tests showing pipe equals behaves exactly like question equals, and updated the RFC's single evaluation section to match. Vadim's own RFC, as of recording, has 0 replies. Paul M. Jones' strict namespace RFC, the piece he carved out of function autoloading last Tuesday night, spent its first full week in a long argument about a single word. Rowan Tommins objected first, writing that strict implies some extra check that namespaces are correct in some way, which isn't really what this is about. Ilya Tovilo went deeper, arguing the value add of this declaration is very small if the plan isn't ever to deprecate or remove the old behavior. Tim Dusterhuis is in favor, with a rename to global fallback equals 0. By Friday, Paul had 4 candidate names on the table and a diagnosis. The pushback is in the name, not the feature. Theodore Brown pointed out that he'd floated the same directive in 2019. Paul added it to the prior art with an apology. And Benjamin Ausenhofer suggested splitting the ballot, vote the concept, then vote the name. Rowan warned against it, writing, "A split vote leaves voters who actively dislike a particular name with an awkward choice. Vote yes and risk the bad name being chosen, or vote no even though you would support the feature under a different name." The rest of the auto-loading corner kept moving too. Paul updated function auto-loading Mark 5 to lean on the new RFC and wants its vote open in about 2 weeks. And Michael Morris' improved auto-loading draft drew warm but firm feedback from Larry Garfield and Rowan Tommins. Both like the name setup file idea, neither wants it crammed into the class autoloader's callback. Nicola Grekas didn't let Ilya Tovilo's sadly not in favor be the last word on serializable closures. His rebuttal, caching one attribute isn't the point. The point is skipping the entire metadata pipeline that frameworks rerun on every request, and that's the measured slow path. On the security design, he refused to loosen it, writing, "Namespace closure unserialization would ship a universal app-independent gadget in the engine. I won't commit to an RFC that turns every serialized payload into that kind of gadget, and I don't think we should either." Then Saturday brought version 0.3 and a surgical cut. The reflection API is gone. The serialize support stays. His reasoning: serialize is the one feature that most or all cache systems are built on, so that's the place that needs the improvement. Fresh reviews are welcome. Wendell Adriel came back to the list Thursday proposing typed array declarations, array ints string as real syntax with 3 escalating enforcement levels. The review was fast and unsparing. Lazar in a Polyglue flagged that you can't soundly subtype a mutable array without splitting reads from writes, and Wendell shipped a revised draft the next day. Rob Landers warned the whole thing overlaps the reified generics work, on hold until after the freeze, which is late August at the earliest. Rowan Tommins noted that Level 1, syntax without enforcement, rhymes with the bound erase generics RFC the list just declined. Mikhail Marchain-Jukalski even found a runtime hole where functions like parse string that build results directly into a typed property can dodge the check. By Monday, Wendell put the RFC on hold himself. Larry Garfield's verdict was the sharpest, calling this the already dangerously overlaid array megatype, and asking for a real typed list, set, and dictionary object instead, which Wendell promptly volunteered to help build. The frozen deprecations list for PHP 8.6 got its evidence file. Juliet Reinders-Fulmer scanned the package's top 4,000, nearly 450,000 files, and posted counts for every proposal. The headline being, "List appears over 12,000 times," and Juliet wrote plainly, "Having said that, I'm definitely not in favor of deprecating list." Compare SPL object hash at 625, is integer at 303, and a long tail of single and double digits. Several proposals scored a clean 0. Camille Takiela discovered the MySQLi proposal had missed the procedural MySQLi statement init, patched the text, and read aloud, "I hope this change is not going to reset the counter." Tim Dusterhuis, who was quick to correct the record downward, one scary-looking count, on underscore as a constant. It collapses to 0 once false positives come out. And Monday, right on schedule, Gina P. Banyard confirmed the timetable, writing, "I intend to open the vote next Monday, the 27th of July, for 2 weeks, so that the vote is finished on time for PHP 8.6. Every deprecation gets voted in isolation, so bring a lunch." Quick hits. Gokudo returned with a rebuilt cache proposal, a bundled user cache extension fully decoupled from op cache this time. Larry Garfield likes it, flagged the lock story around remember, and gently redirected it to 8.7, adding, or 9 if that's what we call it. Holly Schilling's 4x fix for non-public asymmetric setters got its answer. No RFC needed. Tim confirmed a pure performance improvement just needs PR review, and Ilya Ashkenetsky called it definitely a strong candidate for 8.6 inclusion. Fennec pitched engine-native PSR4 autoloading with SPL autoload PSR4 register. Alex Rock wants class map support before it can replace Composer's Bootstrap, and Heinz Weisinger pointed to his existing PECL extension doing much the same. Edmund of the True Async project published a pre-RFC for an async scheduler engine interface, coroutine-aware core, no scheduler in core itself. His philosophical problem is that the RFC has no user-visible changes at all, and so far it has 0 replies. And Osama Aldemiri asked for RFC comma to formalize preg throw-on error. Ilya Tovilo granted it 2 minutes later. Liam Hammett's markup expressions thread sprouted an alternative. Edmund proposed making the parser extensible instead, so JSX-like syntaxes could ship as extensions. Morgan liked that better than blessing one syntax, and within a day, Edmund had a working DSL hooks prototype announcing, "Your wish has been granted." Matej Koshish and Ignace Nyamagera-Butera kept refining query parameters. The open question is whether parsing limits belong on builder methods too, with Ignace arguing PHP shouldn't police what's really a business constraint. Pratik Bujel's terminal helpers extension hit 060, is now installable by a Pi, and its output methods now write to standard PHP streams like standard out and standard error instead of its own built-in targets. The ballot queue grew by 2. Nick S. Posted intent to vote on read-only property defaults for on or around July 23rd, and Khaled Alam's const-property-write opened Saturday the 25th, both aiming ahead of the freeze. Ben Ramsey amended the working group's RFC with a new section setting expectations for charter RFC discussion. And release week, PHP 8.6.0 Alpha 2, 8.5.9 RC1, and 8.4.24 RC1 all shipped, with Alpha 3 both GA releases converging on July 30th. While the release managers posted the countdown that framed half the episode, saw feature freeze August 11th, Beta 1 August 13th, every 8.6 vote closed before then. So that's the week. Two ballot boxes open and both lopsided. Duration cruising at 23:1, minimum versions right behind it. GD 2.4 arriving 4 days after the door closed and pointing at the next release instead. A pipe operator with 2 authors claiming 1 token. Typed arrays proposed, revised, and shelved inside 5 days. And the deprecations list armed with its evidence file, ballots opening Monday, with read-only defaults and const-property-write queued right behind. Links to every thread are below. If you found this interesting, a like or a comment helps more people find it, and share it with whoever on your team should be watching these votes. Subscribe with the bell if you want these the moment they're posted each week, and if you missed last week's episode, that's a good one to catch next. Thanks again to Tideways.com for supporting this week's episode. We're Artisan Build. See you next week.